I was 22 years old, standing in the airport with a single suitcase, watching my old life disappear behind me. My parents had just told me I had to leave Ohio and move to Arizona to live with my Aunt Margot. The reason because I had supposedly ruined my sister Evelyn's life. But here is the truth. Evelyn got pregnant by her deadbeat boyfriend Derek, and when he vanished into thin air, somehow I became the one to blame. Before we dive into this story, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been blamed for something you did not do? Have you ever been punished for simply telling the truth? If so, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop a comment below and tell me your story. And if you have not already, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Because what I am about to tell you will show you that sometimes being pushed away is the best thing that can ever happen to you. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. I grew up in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio. Our house was one of those typical two-story homes with a nice lawn and a white picket fence. From the outside, we looked like the perfect American family. My dad, Richard, worked as a mid-level manager at an insurance company. My mom, Patricia, did part-time accounting work for a few local businesses. And then there was my sister Evelyn, 3 years older than me, and the undisputed princess of our household. For as long as I can remember, Evelyn was the golden child. She had long blonde hair, bright blue eyes, and a smile that could charm anyone. My parents adored her. Everything she did was celebrated. Every achievement was praised like she had just won an Olympic medal. And me, I was just Nathan, the quiet one, the one who blended into the background. The favoritism was not subtle. When Evelyn turned 18, my parents bought her a brand new car. A shiny silver Honda Civic that she drove around like she owned the world. When I turned 18, I had to work double shifts at a grocery store for 2 years just to afford a beat-up Ford Taurus with over 100,000 miles on it. When Evelyn went to college, my parents paid for everything: tuition, books, housing, spending money. When it was my turn, they sat me down and explained that money was tight. I ended up taking out student loans that I am still paying off to this day. Whenever there was a disagreement between Evelyn and me, guess who my parents sided with? Every single time it was her. If she said the sky was green, they would have agreed with her just to keep her happy. I learned early on that fighting for their attention was pointless, so I focused on myself. I worked hard in school, got decent grades, and graduated with a degree in business administration. I thought maybe, just maybe, things would change once I proved myself. I was wrong. About 2 years before everything fell apart, Evelyn met Derek. She was 23 at the time, working part-time at a boutique downtown while figuring out what she wanted to do with her life. Derek walked into her store one afternoon, and according to Evelyn, it was love at first sight. Derek was 28 years old. Tall, dark hair, chiseled jawline. He looked like he stepped out of a magazine. He had this smooth way of talking that made everything he said sound important. When Evelyn brought him home for the first time, he shook my dad's hand, firmly complimented my mom's cooking, and told stories about his business ventures that had everyone hanging on his every word. He called himself an entrepreneur. He talked about startups and investments and big deals that were always just around the corner. But something about him did not sit right with me. His stories never added up. He drove a nice car but always seemed to be short on cash. He talked about his consulting business but could never explain exactly what he did or who his clients were. My parents were skeptical at first, too. I remember my dad pulling Evelyn aside one night and asking her if she was sure about this guy. But Evelyn threw a fit. She cried and said that Derek was the love of her life and that nobody understood her. Within a week, my parents had completely changed their tune. They welcomed Derek into the family like he was already their son-in-law. Derek started coming over for dinner regularly. He would eat my mom's home-cooked meals, drink my dad's beer, and talk about how he was going to take care of Evelyn and give her the life she deserved. He also started borrowing money, first from Evelyn, then from my parents. Small amounts at first, $50 here, $100 there, always with promises to pay it back once his next big deal came through. The money never came back. I kept my mouth shut for a while. I figured it was not my place to interfere. But then one afternoon I saw something that changed everything. I was at a coffee shop near campus working on some assignments when I spotted Derek at a table in the corner. He was not alone. He was with a young woman, maybe 21 or 22, and they were definitely not discussing business. He had his arm around her, whispering in her ear, making her laugh. At one point, he leaned in and kissed her on the cheek. I felt sick to my stomach. I took out my phone and snapped a few pictures as evidence. That night, I decided to tell Evelyn and my parents the truth. I showed them the photos. I explained what I had seen. I told them about all the red flags I had noticed. Derek's vague job descriptions, his constant need for money, his stories that never quite made sense. Evelyn's reaction was exactly what I expected. She burst into tears and accused me of being jealous. She said I was trying to sabotage her happiness because I had never had a serious relationship of my own. She grabbed my phone and deleted the photos before I could stop her. Then she ran to her room and slammed the door. My parents' reaction was worse. My dad looked at me with disappointment in his eyes and said, "Nathan, why do you always have to cause trouble? Why can you not just be happy for your sister?" My mom added, "You have always been jealous of Evelyn. This is just another way for you to bring her down." I tried to explain. I tried to make them see reason. But they did not want to hear it. My dad's final words that night still echo in my mind. He said, "You know what your problem is, Nathan. You are always looking for the negative. That is why you will never be successful like your sister." I stopped trying after that. I figured if they wanted to ignore the warning signs, that was their choice. I would just wait and watch as the inevitable happened. I did not have to wait long. 6 months after I tried to warn my family about Derek, Evelyn made an announcement at Sunday dinner. She was pregnant, 8 weeks along. The table went silent. My mom dropped her fork. My dad's face went pale. Evelyn and Derek were not married. They were not even engaged, at least not officially. Evelyn quickly explained that Derek had proposed to her just a few days earlier. It was a verbal proposal, she said. He did not have a ring yet because he was saving up for the perfect one. He wanted to give her the wedding of her dreams, and that took time and money. My parents exchanged glances, but within minutes they had convinced themselves this was wonderful news. My mom started talking about baby showers and nursery decorations. My dad shook Derek's hand and welcomed him to the family for real this time. I sat there in silence, pushing food around my plate. I had a terrible feeling in my gut. Something was not right. Derek's smile seemed forced. His eyes kept darting to the door like he was looking for an escape route. But nobody else seemed to notice. They were too busy celebrating. 3 weeks later, Derek disappeared. It started with missed phone calls. Evelyn would call him, and he would not answer. She would text him and get no response. At first, she made excuses. He was busy with work. His phone died. He was in meetings all day. But after 2 days of complete silence, she drove to his apartment. The apartment was empty, completely empty. No furniture, no clothes, no sign that anyone had ever lived there. Derek had packed up everything he owned and vanished without a trace. No note, no explanation, nothing. Evelyn was hysterical. She called everyone who might know where Derek had gone. His friends, his supposed business partners, anyone whose number she had. Nobody knew anything, or if they did, they were not talking. As the days passed, more information came to light. Derek owed money to a lot of people. Not just my parents and Evelyn, but others too. Thousands of dollars in total. Some people suspected he had left the state entirely to escape his debts. My sister was devastated. She spent days in her room crying and refusing to eat. She was 8 weeks pregnant with the child of a man who had abandoned her without a second thought. My parents tried to comfort her, but nothing worked. And then about a week after Derek vanished, something shifted. Evelyn stopped crying. She came downstairs one evening with a strange look in her eyes. Cold, calculating. She sat down at the dinner table and looked directly at me. "This is your fault," she said. I almost choked on my water. "Excuse me. If you had not confronted Derek that time, he would still be here. You scared him away. You made him think this family was against him." I could not believe what I was hearing. The confrontation she was talking about was months ago when I had simply asked Derek some questions about his work. I had not even been aggressive. I just wanted to understand what he actually did for a living. Derek had gotten defensive and left early that night. Apparently, Evelyn had never forgotten. "That is ridiculous," I said. "Derek left because he is a coward and a con man. It has nothing to do with me." But Evelyn was not listening. She had already made up her mind. And worse, my parents were nodding along with her. "Nathan," my mom said softly, "maybe you did push him away. You were never welcoming to Derek. He probably felt like he was not accepted here. Are you serious right now?" I looked at my dad, hoping for some sanity, but he would not meet my eyes. "Your mother is right," he said. "You have always been the source of negativity in this house. Maybe it is time for you to take some responsibility." The next few days were a blur of accusations and arguments. Evelyn painted me as the villain who had destroyed her chance at happiness. My parents, desperate for someone to blame other than themselves, or their precious daughter, latched onto the narrative. By the end of the week, they had reached a decision. I had to leave. My dad called me into his office and laid it out plainly. Evelyn needed space to heal. It would be best for everyone if I went to stay with Aunt Margot in Arizona for a while. When I asked how long a while meant, he could not give me a straight answer. Aunt Margot was my dad's younger sister. She had moved to Scottsdale years ago after her divorce and had very little contact with our side of the family. She was the black sheep, the one who had chosen her own path instead of following the family script. When my dad called her and explained the situation, she agreed to take me in. I suspect she saw through the lies immediately, but she did not say anything. She just said I was welcome to stay as long as I needed. I had 1 week to pack up my life. 1 week to say goodbye to everything I had ever known. Not that there was much to say goodbye to. I put my belongings into 3 suitcases and 1 cardboard box. 22 years of existence reduced to luggage. On the day I left, my dad drove me to the airport. The ride was silent. He did not apologize. He did not wish me well. He just stared at the road ahead like I was already gone. When we pulled up to the departure terminal, he finally spoke. "I hope you will think about what you have done," he said. "Maybe some time away will help you become a better person." I did not respond. I grabbed my bags, closed the car door, and walked into the airport without looking back. As I sat on the plane watching Ohio shrink beneath the clouds, I felt a strange mix of emotions: pain, anger, betrayal. But also underneath it all, a tiny spark of something else: relief. I was finally free. Arizona was nothing like Ohio. The landscape was all desert and mountains and endless blue sky. The air was dry and hot, a stark contrast to the humid summers I was used to. When my plane landed in Phoenix, I was not sure what to expect. I had only met Aunt Margot a handful of times at family gatherings when I was younger. I remembered her as a tall woman with sharp features and an even sharper wit. She never seemed to fit in with the rest of the family, which, now that I think about it, was probably why I liked her. She was waiting for me at the arrivals gate, holding a small sign with my name on it. When she saw me, she smiled warmly and pulled me into a hug. "Welcome to Arizona, Nathan," she said. "I am glad you are here." On the drive to her house in Scottsdale, she did not ask me to explain what had happened. She did not interrogate me or make me justify myself. She simply said, "I know my brother and I know how he operates. Whatever they told me on the phone, I am sure it is only half the story, and probably the wrong half. You are safe here. You can be yourself." Those words meant more to me than she could ever know. Aunt Margot lived in a modest but beautiful adobe-style house with a small backyard and a view of the mountains. She was 55 years old, divorced for over a decade, and had no children of her own. She ran a furniture store in downtown Scottsdale, a small operation that she had built from the ground up. She offered me a job there, partly out of kindness and partly because she needed the help. I accepted immediately. The first few months were hard. I was grieving, even though nobody had died. I was mourning the family I thought I had, the parents I thought loved me, the home I thought was mine. Some nights I would lie awake, replaying every conversation, every argument, every moment of favoritism. I wondered if there was something I could have done differently. If I had just kept my mouth shut about Derek, would I still be in Ohio? But slowly, things started to change. Working at the furniture store gave me purpose. I started learning about the business, about inventory management and customer relations and marketing. Aunt Margot noticed my interest and started teaching me more. She showed me how to read financial statements, how to negotiate with suppliers, how to create displays that actually made people want to buy things. After about 6 months, she put me in charge of the store's online presence. It was practically non-existent when I started. Just a basic website with some outdated photos and no real marketing strategy. I threw myself into the project. I redesigned the website, set up social media accounts, and started running targeted advertising campaigns. Within 6 months, our online sales had increased by 40%. Around this time, I met Lucas. He was an interior designer who sometimes partnered with Aunt Margot on projects. He was a few years older than me, laid back and easygoing with a wide network of contacts in the local design community. We hit it off immediately. Lucas introduced me to his friends, brought me to industry events, and helped me see that there was a whole world beyond the narrow confines of my family's expectations. 2 years passed. In that time, I went from being a stock boy to becoming Aunt Margot's business partner. Together, we opened 2 additional store locations, one in Phoenix and one in Tucson. I bought my own house, a small place near the mountains with a backyard where I could watch the sunset every evening. I purchased a reliable car with my own money. And I started dating Sophie, a yoga instructor I met at the gym. She was kind and patient and never made me feel like I had to be anyone other than who I was. My life in Arizona was everything my life in Ohio had never been. I was successful. I was happy. I was free. During those 2 years, I had almost no contact with my family back in Ohio. I had blocked Evelyn on all social media. I did not answer calls from unknown numbers. Aunt Margot was my only connection to that world, and even she kept the updates brief. But she did tell me some things. Evelyn had given birth to a baby boy named Tyler. She was living with my parents because she had no income and no way to support herself. Derek had never resurfaced. My parents were paying for everything, diapers and formula and doctor visits, and it was taking a toll on their finances. My dad's health was declining from the stress. My mom looked exhausted every time Aunt Margot saw photos on social media. I just was not ready to forgive them. 3 years after I left Ohio, I received a phone call that changed everything. It was late evening in Arizona. I was sitting on my couch with Sophie watching a movie when my phone buzzed. The caller ID showed an Ohio area code, but I did not recognize the number. Normally I would have ignored it, but something made me answer. Nathan. The voice on the other end was tired and thin. It took me a moment to recognize it. Mom, Nathan, I am calling because your father is in the hospital. He had a mild heart attack yesterday. He is stable now, but... She trailed off. There was a long silence on the line. I could hear her breathing, shaky and uneven. The doctors say he needs to reduce stress. He needs to make changes to his lifestyle. I thought you should know. I did not know what to say. For 3 years I had heard nothing from my parents except through Aunt Margot. No apologies, no attempts at reconciliation. And now suddenly this. Is he going to be okay? I finally asked. They think so. But Nathan, She paused again. I know we did not part on good terms. I know you have every reason to hate us. But if there is any chance you could come visit just for a few days. I think it would mean a lot to your father. To all of us. She did not apologize, not directly, but there was something in her voice that sounded almost like regret. I will think about it, I said, and I hung up. That night I could not sleep. I talked to Sophie about what had happened. Then I called Aunt Margot and talked to her too. Both of them said the same thing. This was my decision to make. They would support me either way. I spent hours staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything. The years of favoritism, the unfair comparisons. The night I was blamed for Derek's disappearance, the look on my father's face when he dropped me off at the airport. But I also thought about something else. If I did not go and something happened to my father, would I regret it? Would I spend the rest of my life wondering what might have been? By morning, I had made my decision. I was going back to Ohio. Not to forgive them, not to pretend everything was okay, but to face them, to say the things I had never been able to say, and to finally close that chapter of my life. I booked a flight for the next day. Walking into that hospital room was one of the hardest things I have ever done. My father was lying in the bed hooked up to monitors and IV lines. He looked 20 years older than I remembered. My mother was sitting beside him, clutching his hand, and Evelyn was there too, holding Tyler, who was now a little over 3 years old. They all looked up when I entered. For a moment, nobody spoke. My father was the first to break the silence. "You came," he said. His voice was weak but surprised. "I came," I replied. I did not move closer. I stood by the door, keeping my distance. My mother started to cry. "Nathan, I am so sorry. We were wrong. We were so wrong about everything." Evelyn would not look at me. She kept her eyes on Tyler, bouncing him gently on her knee. I let the silence stretch out. Then slowly I began to speak. I told them everything I had kept inside for 3 years. I told them about the years of feeling invisible, of being compared to Evelyn, and always coming up short. I told them about the favoritism, the car, the college tuition, the countless times they had chosen her over me. I told them about the night I tried to warn them about Derek and how they had called me jealous and negative. I told them about the pain of being blamed for something I did not do, of being exiled from my own home like a criminal. I did not yell. I did not cry. I just spoke in a calm, steady voice, laying out the truth that had been buried for so long. When I finished, the room was silent. My mother was sobbing quietly. My father had tears in his eyes. And Evelyn finally looked up at me. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I knew it was not your fault. I knew Derek was a loser from the start. But I was so scared and so angry, and I needed someone to blame. It was easier to blame you than to admit I had made a mistake." I looked at my sister, really looked at her for the first time in years. She looked exhausted, worn down. Not the golden princess I remembered, but a tired single mother struggling to hold her life together. "I do not hate you, Evelyn," I said. "I do not hate any of you, but I'm not going to pretend like nothing happened. I have built a life for myself in Arizona. A good life. And I am not giving that up." I stayed in Ohio for 3 days. I visited my father in the hospital every day until he was discharged. I had long conversations with my mother, conversations that should have happened years ago. And I talked to Evelyn about her future, about the importance of standing on her own 2 feet instead of waiting for someone else to save her. On my last day, my father pulled me aside. He was still weak, but there was a clarity in his eyes that I had not seen before. "I failed you," he said. "I was so focused on Evelyn that I forgot I had a son who needed me too. I cannot take back what I did, but I want you to know that I am proud of you, Nathan. More proud than I ever told you. It was not enough to erase the past, but it was something." I flew back to Arizona the next morning. Sophie picked me up from the airport, and as we drove through the desert toward home, I felt lighter than I had in years. Over the following months, things slowly changed. I started calling my parents once a month. Short conversations, nothing too deep but enough to maintain a connection. Evelyn got a job at a retail store and started saving money to get her own apartment. It was not a fairy tale ending. We were not suddenly a happy, functional family. But there was a mutual respect that had not existed before. Now, as I sit on my back porch, watching another Arizona sunset, I think about everything that has happened. 4 years ago, I was a 22-year-old kid who had just been kicked out of his home for something he did not do. Today, I am a successful business owner with a loving partner and a life I built with my own hands. Being sent away was the most painful thing that ever happened to me. But it was also the best thing. It forced me to grow up. It showed me who I really was and what I was capable of. It taught me that you cannot control how other people treat you. You can only control how you respond. So, if you are watching this and you are going through something similar, if you are being blamed for things that are not your fault, if you feel like you do not belong in your own family, I want you to know this. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most will let you down the hardest. And sometimes being pushed away is exactly what you need to find where you truly belong. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been the scapegoat in your family? Have you ever had to leave everything behind and start over? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this video resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and share this with someone who might need to hear it. Your support means the world to me. Thank you for watching. And I wish you the strength to build the life you deserve, no matter what obstacles stand in your way. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.